It is October 9, 2024. It is not a Thursday, it is Wednesday today. And yet, we are here doing the Dynamite review that we typically do on Thursdays. Now, why would that be? Why did you do? Oh, that's because there was a Title Tuesday this week. Dynamite was not on the Wednesday. It was preempted, I believe, because of Major League Baseball. And instead, we got the Title Tuesday, the Dynamite over on a Tuesday evening, going head to head with NXT at least for 1 hour, right? Dynamite aired at 9 p.m. Eastern, which would mean that the first hour of Dynamite and the last hour of NXT sort of crossed over. We were back to the Tuesday Night Wars, or the Wednesday Night Wars, I should say. But there was a bit of a Tuesday Night War. There still is. But we're back to the Wednesday Night Wars for a little while. All the sense of nostalgia started wafting back. But look, you can only spend a minimal amount of time in nostalgia before it's time to move on. You can't live in the past. That's why we are here today doing this Dynamite review, which has absolutely nothing to do with the Wednesday Night Wars, or especially the Monday Night Wars. I don't know why we went down this tangent. I'm Warren. This is the WarrenHayes Show channel, and thank you for being here. It's going to be a good time. We've got a good, fun little episode of Dynamite here to go through. A go-home show to WrestleDream. Before we go any further, consider leaving a like on the video and subscribe if it's your first time here. We'd love to have you around. And a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or a 5-star rating on Spotify would also help out tremendously. All of this audio is available in all these lovely, lovely places. October 8th, 2024, from the Spokane Arena in Spokane, Washington. I always thought it was Spokane. Like, if I've ever pronounced it like that live, and I don't think so, I'm live or even recorded in the past, I apologize. Spokane, but I always thought it was Spokane. And doesn't that make more sense to pronounce it that way? I mean, if you look at the word Spokane, like your first instinct is to call it Spokane, right? It's as opposed to Spokane. I don't think I was all, I'm trying not to beat myself up because of all these years calling it Spokane, Washington. It seems to me like when I was a kid, there was an ad for some government agency in the United States when I was a kid that was broadcast, of course, on American networks, where they'd have people, the address they'd leave for people to write into was in Spokane, Washington. And I feel like the narrator said Spokane, Washington. Is this one of these things that we just decided to change the pronunciation over the years? Is it because it's closer to its Native American roots, maybe? Spokane, like, I'm completely baffled. I'm taking a couple of minutes out of this podcast here to just go a little hard on this, because I was so convinced. Like, there was never a doubt in my mind that it was Spokane. That's how convinced I was. Like, I didn't even think about it. It's Spokane. That's all there is to it, right? And then last night, everyone starts calling it Spokane. And I'm like, and then there's this feeling of cringe that just, washes over you, and like, oh my God, have I truly been wrong all these years? It's like when Peter Jennings started to call him Missouri on TV, which made my mother really upset. He's saying it wrong. He's not saying it wrong, Mom. It's Peter Jennings. I would assume, like, I put Excalibur on the same level as Peter Jennings back in the day on ABC News, right? I mean, as far as pronunciations and getting things right, I think Excalibur is a pretty solid source. Is he as trustworthy as Peter Jennings? Well, no, because he's a professional wrestler at heart. But when it comes to pronunciations, like when he pulled out, the Konosuke Takeshita, where most of us had been calling him up to that point Konosuke Takeshita, right? That's what most of us were calling him. At the very least, the Takeshita was pretty universal. I don't think up until Excalibur started pronouncing it, I don't think I had ever heard anyone say anything other than Takeshita. And this is maybe that type of similar situation where although I can't even say, everyone up until this point was saying Spokane as opposed to Spokane, right? Because quite frankly, I've never heard all that many people around me pronounce the name of that town. First and foremost, Spokane, Washington isn't exactly, the thriving, budding metropolis that is on the lips of everyone, and who people dream to move to. It's not New York. It's not, San Francisco. It's not Tokyo or Paris. It's Spokane. So it's not exactly, it's not as if you're having these stories coming up all left and right of people dreaming to go to Spokane. So it's not as if the pronunciation of Spokane is part of this generalized zeitgeist where everything, where you make sure, where everyone knows that this is the exact pronunciation. I think it's fair that I got messed up. Why am I justifying myself to you all right now for a thing that has been up until this point very intrinsically personal and never really caused any waves in any way, shape, or form? I don't know why. There's no point to this. So we'll try and make a good point here, talking about the number of tickets that were distributed at the Spokane Arena in Spokane, Washington. 1,852 tickets were distributed, according to WrestleTix at their last update yesterday. At the moment that I'm recording this, yeah, that's not good. It's not good, and you could feel it. You could feel it in the audience. You could tell in certain segments as well. We'll probably talk a little bit about it. I don't think it was a bad crowd, but I don't think it was a particularly good crowd. And I think, and I think it's kind of symptomatic of the fact that the arena was really not full, right? Like how much is the attendance of the Spokane Arena? I mean, we're talking, it's a 12,600 seat arena, 12,638 for end stage concerts, 12,494 for center stage shows, 12,210 for basketball. And so yeah, look, I don't want to come across as defeatist again, but you probably filled up a little more than an eighth of the building. Look, it's just not good. Okay, it's just not good. It's a terrible number. But then again, is Spokane, Washington, the town you need to run for a midweek show? I mean, we're going to see more of a trend of this, I believe, coming up in the next few weeks and in the next few months, where some of the larger towns, we're going to start running. Let me flip that in another way. We're going to see more and more of these smaller towns get hit up for AEW shows, as opposed to always running, some of the bigger cities or like the bustling metropolises of the United States. We're going to see more and more of these smaller towns and hopefully smaller venues. And the question that you can ask yourself is, is Spokane a town that you can run a show on a weeknight, slab it right smack dab at the the middle of the week? Is this something that you can do, and is this a model that you'll be able to repeat moving forward? Look, it's hard to tell, but holy smokes, what an attendance for your debut at a venue. But let's get to the show itself. It starts with a pre-tape of Jon Moxley saying that he's been watching, with great interest, Bryan Danielson trying to kamikaze himself over the last few years, and basically he's gonna take over. He's gonna do it for him. That's it. He basically said that the stakes are too high. He's got to get this done. He's unfortunately got to take out Danielson. No mention of any quote unquote higher power, and I'm doing the quote unquote because that's the lingo that a lot of wrestling fans are using these days, that there's a higher power, as of course alluding to the corporate ministry angle. Yeah, that's basically another good chilling promo by Mox to lead us into another video of Bryan Danielson this time, saying that Claudio Castagnoli is wrong when he said he spoke to Sports Illustrated, and he said he's wrong if he's saying that this is going to be my last match on Dynamite, because of course, let's not forget, and this is important, Danielson outright said, and this I believe the stipulation will continue to follow, that he will continue wrestling full time. He will continue wrestling, period, I believe, right up until he loses the AEW World Championship. After that, he's hitting the bricks. But Danielson says he's going to kick his head in. That leads us to Darby Allin making his way into the ring, and he has a microphone and he calls out Brody King. Brody King comes out, and they cut a really awkward, really weird kind of promo where Allin talks about coming up, how both of them did it together, sleeping in cheap motels. What did he call it? Crackhead motels is what he called it, I think. And how they were going to make it one day. And Darby finally got the job, and he said, that he told Tony to hire Brody King. And he says, yeah, I got you the job here. What are we even doing? What is this nonsense? And he says, I don't take anything for granted here. And Brody interrupts him. And, he says, you're right. I have everything I want, but, you take it for granted. I don't take it for granted because, you take it for granted because you want to climb Mount Everest, and then you'll die on the mountain. And what'll happen then, your dad will have to pick up the pieces and wait, this is all very weird. I don't understand what's going on, really. I understand what they're trying to do, but the delivery the delivery and execution is a little off, and it's not clicking. It's not making it work. It's not. I find kind of awkward, a little weird. So then Darby says, "Okay, put me out of my misery," and he wants him to beat him. He wants. He being Brody, he wants Brody to beat him up, and Darby slaps him across the face, and Brody then chokes him out, which was a bit of the story that they told in the lead up, where they were showing video of their previous encounters, not just matches, but previous encounters where Brody ends up, choking Darby, and so he does it here again, but Darby has a rock. He's got a big ass rock, like a rock, like a big stone, and he just wallops him across the face. Brody bleeds from the mouth, and officials try to keep him apart. I don't know. It was a little weird. I'm not sure. Not quite sure I was into it. Next we had Jake the Snake Roberts backstage with Lance Archer. Don Callis arrives, and they announce that they are doing the first talent exchange in AEW history, manager. And Callis now represents Archer, and everyone's happy. Callis hits the bricks, and then Renee Paquette, Renee Paquette asks who Jake got in return. He says he Do you love surprises, Renee? Because I love surprises. Okay. Then we have earlier today, Daniel Garcia is arriving at the building. We are officially out of Garcia Watch, folks. It's done. It's been, when I saw him walking up, I was like, there we go. Garcia Watch is officially over. Why don't we talk about the segment? Why don't we just all pack it into a nice little segment, right? Here, well, and then we'll move on. We'll go back to the opening match. Because look, Quarter Hour 1 had zero wrestling in it. Like zero wrestling. Not even people coming to the ring, for their presentations. No match starting and then cutting to commercial. There was no professional wrestling in the entirety of Quarter Hour 1 of this show. But nonetheless, just wanted to underscore that. Let's talk about the whole Daniel Garcia thing for the evening. Garcia arrives at the building, and Renee says, hey, we haven't seen you for a while, pal. What's up? And Garcia says, well, I'm going to tell it to the audience. I owe them that. Something to that effect. So when he does eventually come to the ring later on in the evening, he has a good response, but as good a response you're going to get when you have less than 2,000 people in the building, and and he has the mic, and basically, he thanks Tony for giving him this time and trying to think of what's best for him since he's been out, since he's been at home, trying to think what was best for him in his career, and basically says, but look, I'm a professional wrestler and I want to wrestle where the best wrestle. I am staying with AEW, right? This was the entire thing. This is why we are done with Garcia Watch. The question that was on everyone's mind was, is Daniel Garcia's free agency going to end with him staying with AEW or with him heading over to WWE? And he just shot that down dead. He is setting up to be right where he is right now. I thought it was interesting, that he outright said, I am a professional wrestler. There's no more of this ambiguity. There's, the sports entertainment stuff is that definitely seems to be a thing of the past. I believe his identity crisis is over. And we've got ourselves a Daniel Garcia who is ready to stay here. Look, I've talked about this multiple times because we were on Garcia Watch. I think this is the best outcome for him. I don't think there really was. I don't think there really was an interesting spot for him in WWE. Like there was nothing he could do. There was nothing there for him that would help establish him as a top guy. Like this is a guy they'd bring in and would have put over other dudes all the time. He might get, one of these little bursts, these little push bursts that WWE likes to give to their guys once in a while. But then, there was no way he was truly getting over in WWE and becoming a top guy, not without doing some ridiculous stuff to help his case. Otherwise, he'd be, and he wouldn't be going straight to main roster. They'd send him to the warehouse, and he'd be wrestling at the warehouse, and I don't know who'd be into that. Like, I don't know how a guy like Garcia. But let's put it this way: I don't know how a guy like Garcia would be into that. Someone who everyone has pointed as being, an absolute future monster in pro wrestling, a true top guy. No, I'm happy. I'm happy because, first of all, I'm going to continue to be able to watch him on a weekly basis. That's one thing. And the other thing is that I really do believe that this is the best move for his career. And he probably got a nice little raise. And you would assume, with how things are sort of setting in, that he's had a maybe he's had a title promised to him, because a little later on in the evening, he's walking backstage and he's high-fiving a bunch of people that are really excited that he's there. And look, they're establishing Garcia staying as a big deal. And we have to make, what was that with my voice? We have to make this, we have to point this out. It's not just Garcia is back, he's staying. No, he's coming to the ring. He's hitting the ring. He is offered the same type of platform that a lot of top guys sometimes get when it comes to their contract renewals, and it's being given to him, and he really did do the most with the time he was given. And we have to point out as well, as a sub point, we have to point out how good of a talker Garcia has become since back when he started with AEW. Truly wasn't his strength, but he's become a lot more confident. I'm not saying that he's the second coming of Roddy Piper, but he has improved tremendously. He's not a bad promo anymore. He really was able to come in the room. He's been surrounded by people who could help him with that, whether he worked on it with Jericho or MJF. Like they really were able to help him improve in that area where he has been lacking quite a bit. But back to the original point before we deviated here, he's given this spot to make it feel like a big deal. And whether it's Tony wanting to just like pat himself on the back and say, hey, we won another free agency, we're not just dropping guys to WWE, we're also retaining some of our talent, some of our important talent, or whether it's that, or he really does want to push Garcia for him to be a top guy, or a combination of both. This was a significant moment, and you can't observe what happened with Garcia last night and completely let that slip by. He's going backstage and he's high-fiving people. Well, I mean, there's an importance that's being established here for Garcia moving forward. He's not just, you feel like he's not just going to be another guy, that there will be plans for him. And I think the most important element of this is that it shows that Tony Khan, despite the fact that he's bringing in all these vets from WWE, he's been doing a lot of that, he still has a focus on developing the talent of the future, that he still believes in the guys who are still very young, but have played parts in the development of AEW. He still sees their value, and he still wants to contribute to making them stars for the company. And that's important. I had mentioned this when we were talking about the possibility of Garcia leaving. I think it sends an important message to the young guys backstage who aren't like at the top yet, right? Like the top flight guys and Action Andretti and Lee Moriarty, and the list goes on, and the ladies as well. That the message that's sent is that Garcia is ready. Not Garcia, excuse me. Tony Khan still believes in developing the younger talent. And if he had let Garcia go, that would have sent, especially in the context of AEW right now, that would have sent such an awful, awful message backstage. This, I think, is also it has to be reassuring for the younger guys at the same time. And while he's backstage slapping hands, coming back to the segment, he runs into Shibata, who still has the Google Translate gimmick, and basically says, when I win the title, you're up next. And they do the Predator handshake. It's not a handshake, the hand clasp. They do that, and they mug for the camera. Okay. So, if we're establishing a title, the possibility of a title shot for him, we may be looking towards the TNT title. I still believe that the best course of action would be for Daniel Garcia to go back into the C2 this year and right the wrongs of last year. It's such an easy story to tell and would get people behind him. It would be a tremendous story. Have him do the C2 again, but this time have a winning record, have him win his group, his block, and have him beat Kazuchika Okada for the C2 title. Anything like going for the TNT title, okay, but I really do think another run in the Continental Classic for Daniel Garcia, who last year his story was that he didn't know who he was. He was in an identity crisis caught between the sports entertainer and the wrestler, and that's why he ended up with a losing record. Have him come in this year, do the complete opposite, and have him reach the finals against Okada and have him beat Okada. I think that's what you do. And that would be tremendous. That's how you bring him back. That's how you make a star out of him. Not beating Jack Perry for the TNT title. It won't have the same punch. I don't know. To me, it seems like a really easy layup of a story. Anyway, so that's the Dan Garcia stuff. Let's get back to the order of the show. First match that we had was Hologram defeating Kommander. I thought it was a nice little match. It felt a little sloppy. It felt like Kommander, were the ropes loose? Because it really felt like Kommander had trouble commanding the ropes and doing his fantastic flippy-do stuff. But at a couple of points, you'd see him jump up on the ropes and sort of, like they felt loose. As if he had to adjust, like they didn't have the usual tension. But this was a lucha libre match. A little on the sloppy side, but not anything that completely destroyed my enjoyment. Hologram does this incredible dive early on, like incredible, where he tope suicida, just goes through the ropes and he lands like head first, right into Kommander, and Commander's backing up, like falling backwards, and Hologram's momentum is still carrying him forward. He's like lodged into Kommander head first. It was such an incredible visual. It was such a tremendous dive. I loved it. Springboard senton atomico by Kommander, and he did that tremendous triple springboard Rana as well. We're doing Spanish flies and 450 splashes. They're both on the ropes, like on the top rope, not in the corners, like walking the top rope, and they're doing and Hologram goes for a Rana, but Kommander blocks it and power bombs him off the rope instead, like just bonkers stuff. But Hologram wins it with the airplane spin slam, whatever he calls it. Hologram probably has a name for it, right? Like the hollow deck, the hollow death. Like hollow something, like something with hologram. Maybe he just calls it the 2-pack. Maybe that's all he calls it. After the match, Jake Roberts shows up on the ramp. All right, this is indeed a surprise. And the babyfaces get overtaken by Rush, Jalistico, and Beast Mortos, while Jake Roberts looks at the top of the ring, and after the baby faces get beat up, the three heels in the ring pause for the LFI, La Facción Ingobernable, or as I'm going to call them moving forward, Los Ingobernables de TK. And Jake Roberts does it at the very top of the ramp. He clearly has barely any mobility now, and it's probably not a good time. But yeah, so Mortos did hesitate for some reason. He didn't have any hesitation running into the ring with Mortos and his brother, but he hesitated doing the fist bump thing. So there we go. Los Ingobernables de TK is a thing, and Jake Roberts is probably going to be the mouthpiece, which is not a bad idea. I think it well, at the very least, it's an interesting pairing. And that's where the exchange was, of course, where Roosh is no longer in the Don Callis family and is now doing LFI now. No, LITK. That's what we got to call it now. LITK with Jake Roberts. So that we all patched that up. All done. Mark Briscoe cuts a very short interview backstage after looking over some footage from last week when Chris Jericho brought up Jay Briscoe in a promo. And he says that, basically Jericho messed up and I'm going to hurt you. And it's not even about the Ring of Honor title anymore. Oh, gee willikers. We're having enough trouble trying to get people to be interested in the ROH world title in the first place. Now the champion is outright saying, I didn't even care about it anymore. Like, I get it. I understand why. But in the context, I don't know if this is a good, story beat. There's a video package that follows Swerve Strickland showing what Swerve has been up to over the last month. And, it's sort of cut in with MVP's debut promo. And Swerve returns Saturday night at WrestleDream, so get yourself ready for a big angle and a big debut. I think it's pretty clear that Bob Lashley is going to be showing up, pretty sure. Mercedes Moné and Camille are backstage. They were interviewed by Renee Paquette, who tried to do the Mercedes stuff, and it was just incredibly embarrassing. At least that was addressed, that it was embarrassing. And everyone has to jump on the money train, just like Chris Statlander, who is absolutely the Chris Statlander heel turn. For those of you who have not listened to my AEW WrestleDream preview show yet, which is on the Mr. Warren Hayes Show podcast that was released earlier today, if you're listening to this on Wednesday, I basically said that this was absolute garbage. I talked about it on stream. Someone in the chat says this is not storytelling, this is anti-storytelling. And I agree. Like, Chris Statlander just dropping everything, months of build to try and get us into this feud with Willow, a heel turn that was doing her some good, that refreshed her character, had a good little dynamic going with Stokely Hathaway. Why they just suddenly pulled the rug under it so that they could serve her up to Mercedes is beyond me. Just beyond me. I don't understand it. That's really bad. That's bad. Like, that's truly bad. Then we get to Daniel Garcia high-fiving people. We already talked about that. And then this leads us to the AEW Women's World Title #1 Contendership 4-way match, where Willow Nightingale defeated Jamie Hayter, Nyla Rose, and Saraya. Another bit of an odd match. When I say another, it's like I feel like there's been a couple of these women matches on Dynamite recently that have all come off as a little odd, and this was this was also a little off, I guess. Straight off the bat, they teased, Jamie Hayter and Willow Nightingale clear the ring, and they're the last two in the ring, and they teased that, and people seemed into it, or at least as into it as less than 1,200 people in an arena can get into it. And somehow this three-way turns into a plunder match. This four-way turns into a plunder match. I don't know. Nyla takes a big bump off the apron. Saraya and Harley Cameron are trying to bring a table into the ring, and they're botching it. And it kind of gets awkward because of it, because they're trying to bring it in. They can't quite get it in. And when they finally do, Like, I think Willow was like, okay, this is getting awkward and too long and we got to do something. And then they sort of lost their spot and they were trying to regain it. I don't know. Like there was a little confusion at that point when they couldn't immediately get the ring, the table into the ring. Things just went a little sideways in the match. I wouldn't want to say the match fell apart, but it went askew. How about that? It went askew. We'll go with that one. It didn't fall apart. It went askew. Askew. The match went askew. But nonetheless, they did. Willow does a DVD through the table on Saraya. Oh, Penelope Ford showed up out of nowhere and attacked Jamie Hayter, and Jamie Hayter sort of like went pshaw to the match and started chasing Penelope up the ramp to the backstage area. And didn't that happen recently where someone just abandoned a number one contenders match? And I'm like, well, do people care about the titles? Like, if y'all are not going to care about the titles, I'm not going to care about them either. Like, I'm not going to care. I'm not going to care harder than you guys and gals in this situation. Yeah, so basically there's only 3 people left. Nyla's been taken out, and all that's left to do is for Willow Nightingale to get the pin on Saraya. And Harley Cameron was trying to help Saraya, don't get me wrong, but she pinned both. And I'm like, Harley's not in the match. Who cares? Like, what are we doing here? I'll tell you one thing. Harley Cameron. We're a pro Harley Cameron podcast here. We've been for a while now. Ever since that, we all remember that one match she was in like a couple of months ago. I can't remember who she was wrestling. It doesn't matter. And we were all sort of gritting our teeth going, getting ready for the worst. Harley, And it turns out she's got a lot of upside. I'm not here telling y'all that she's the next Lioness Asuka. But nonetheless, there's, I think she has a lot of upside, much more than Saraya. She needs to break out of this a little more. Anyway, the learning tree. Willow's the number one contender. She's fighting Mariah May this weekend. Well, why don't we lock this into a segment that happened a little later on in the evening? Mariah May is being interviewed, and she starts getting interviewed, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Willow just like runs in and pounces, does the pounce, whomp, and Mariah just like flies off screen in a tremendous moment. I thought that was great, and basically Willow just said that that she just beat 3 former world women champions in the match. So, I'm going to add you to that list, Mariah May. So they're fighting at the WrestleDream this weekend. Back a little, let's back it up a bit, rewind. After the women's match, we had the learning tree. They find Rocky Romero backstage, and they try to sow some seeds of dissent, telling Rocky, well, what are you doing with these goofballs in the conglomerate kind of thing. And we tease a Rocky Romero, Bryan Keith match. Jay White has a match, a squash match against Cody Chhun. A strong squash, well done, well executed. Bravo to everyone involved. But after the match, he being Jay White, cuts a promo on Hangman Adam Page. Says Hangman is one of 2 men who knocked him off his path to becoming AEW World Champion, which means he's one of 2 mistakes that need to be righted. And so he's coming after him. And after he beats him, he'll correct the second mistake and go for the world title. And so his world title run begins with Hangman at WrestleDream. And he even addresses the audience, saying, hey, you guys used to boo me. Now you're not. Basically not exactly saying it in those words. It's like, it doesn't matter really to me. I just want the world championship. And a fantastic promo. Like, you couldn't get more old school, meaningful, energetic than that, where he's just like staring right into the camera, sweaty, out of breath, foaming at the mouth. Just a classic, incredible promo. I've always said so many times when he was at the top of his game in Japan. I was saying that Jay White in Japan was the heel that wrestling promotions in North America wanted, but he was in Japan. He was doing it in Japan. He was doing the best North American heel work in Japan. And now he's here. He's not exactly a heel, I get it. But, straight to the point, angry. You feel the anger in it. Just setting up a match where I have to beat you because I want to get to the world title. And I love that there's guys that guys still do that, right? In the that do that in this environment, which they're not necessarily in a program with the world champion, but they're like, I want the world championship. I'm coming after the world championship. And I think that's great. It's exciting. So they'll be fighting at WrestleDream. Hook is with a camera crew backstage. He's looking for Taz's assailants, but I don't know what his plan is. Like, I thought he was going to go knock on a locker room door, or he was going to go rap, and then he was going to open and reveal to us that it was, Stokely Hathaway who orchestrated the attack on Taz. And then Stokely was going to get beat up, or something to that effect. But no, so he's got a camera crew and he says, I'm going to, what is it? I'm going to confront the assailants, but he doesn't know who they are. He's still looking for them. Is that it? Like, I don't understand this segment. Or did he know who they were and then bumped into Christian, to Kip Sabian, and that completely derailed the segment because then Christian arrives and he's like, have you seen, whatever? Did that completely derail the Hook search? Because after Christian was gone, Hook could have been like, come on guys, let's finish this, to the camera crew, and then goes and finds, does he know who attacked Taz or not? It's kind of weird. I'm not into it. And that's it. He bumps into Kip Sabian. Sabian takes a powder. Christian is like, well, have you seen Kip Sabian? And Hook goes, no. Anyway, it's whatever. And Christian mentions his father. It's right. That leads us to the AEW TBS New Japan Strong Women's title match, where Mercedes Mone defeated Emi Sakura. This was good, if a little underwhelming. I would have thought that this would have gone a little harder than it did. But, fine little match. Somewhere between the 2 3/4 to a 3. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure exactly what the thing is. There was a lot of strikes to begin with, and there's a rope hang spot over the turnbuckle to the floor by Mercedes on Emi, which was pretty cool. Then she does the Meteora from the apron. Emi Sakura drapes Mercedes over the barricade and splashes her. That was also a good spot. She does the stalling double underhook backbreaker in the ring, but the ref gets distracted by Camille, and that allows Mercedes to lock in the money statement. I can never remember the name of the bank statement now. It's the cash statement, the cash jar, the cash settlement, I don't know, the money maker's the other thing, right? The back thing, into the slam, which isn't very good. The money, what is it? The MoneyGram. The money, it doesn't matter. It's the bank statement. After the match, Mercedes and Camille wanna beat up Emi some more, but then Chris Statlander runs in for the save, and no one knows exactly how to behave due to this, and I do not blame them, because the Chris Statlander turn is bad. It was poorly executed, and it's a bad move. Stokely Hathaway now is stuck having to schmooze Private Party because he has no more clients. They say, oh, now that we're number one contenders, now you're going to hop on the bandwagon. Where were you when we were struggling? I was like, no. Anyway, they cut a quick quick promo on the match for against the Bucks. Then Tony Schiavone's in the ring, introducing Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay's got an issue with Takeshita running in his match with Ricochet last week, saying, you know, we were supposed to decide something. Now we're still equal. Whatever the fuck. Ospreay says he needs to know. It says he knows Takeshita wouldn't have done this unless without Don Callis putting him up to it. That's what I should say. He says, Don Callis, get your bald head out here. So he does, and he goes in for a hug, which is rejected. You know, Ospreay's a little hostile right now. Callis, takes credit for Will's big wins over Omega and Jericho, and he cuts him off. Ospreay does, and he asks him straight up, "Did you send Takeshita out last week to get me?" And Callis tries to dodge the question over and over, but Ospreay says it's a simple question. Why are you dancing around this? It's like trying to get an answer, a straight answer out of a Republican. It's like, apologies. Am I getting political here for a second? I'm sorry. I apologize. But it really did remind me of that, where it's like, it's a simple yes or no question. Well, it's a simple yes or no question. And finally, Don feels the pressure, cracks, and says, yeah, okay, I sent them out. And I did it out of frustration because, Will, you won't listen, and you've been costing yourself opportunities, basically. And Ospreay then tells Don Callis, that he doesn't know shit, bruv. Callis says he used to manage the best wrestler in the world, but he threw him in the bin for Ospreay, and I guess I have to do this again. Ospreay says they're done. Callis slaps him in the face. Ospreay tosses Don across the ring. So we got Don Callis. We got the Jackal taking some bumps here. And Takeshita runs in, and he and Ospreay go at it. Kyle Fletcher then jumps in, and he's trying to peace broker all of this, but instead Callis gives him a screwdriver, and he's like, use it on Ospreay. Go ahead, kill him. Then we'll go backstage. And do some light repair work. We'll go change some light fixtures afterwards. Maybe change some smoke detectors. And whatever. But Kyle doesn't want to attack Ospreay, and he takes a powder. So yeah, that essentially Takeshita sort of stands tall until Ricochet runs in for the save, takes Takeshita out with a great springboard lariat, and yeah, I thought this segment was tremendous. This was my favorite part of the show. I thought this was all good. This was all good. And I'm starting to think that I'm going to have to start changing my tune when it comes to three-way matches, multi-man matches for titles in AEW, because they always end up being really cool. And this made me more excited for that match than I should. And I know it's going to be great because, like I said, on my preview, again, that's on the podcast that was released today, if you're listening to all of this on Wednesday, I said, I hate the concept of it, but this will probably be the match of the show. This has very much the possibility to be the best match on the WrestleDream card. So am I going to have to soften my stance? Maybe after years of just being, of watching the formulaic three-way matches in WWE, because they always wanted to protect people. They always wanted the no DQ situation. They always had this pattern for these matches. Maybe now I need to broaden my horizons. I need to loosen up instead of being a big old stiff about all this all the time. I mean, I still don't like the idea. I will always prefer, for a championship, I will always prefer one-on-one Build a challenger. Build a challenger properly. That's what I'm most into. That won't change. But I'll be damned if this didn't get me hyped. This was a great segment. And we got some closure with the Don Callis family and Will Ospreay at the same time. It's all good. It's all good stuff. Well done. Well executed. Perfect stuff. Everyone did their roles perfectly. It was great. Action Andretti and Top Flight are backstage. Top Flight are saying, "Oh, we should have won. And Action Andretti is, basically blames them directly and saying, "Hey, it's you guys' fault. I'm just trying to do my best here." And New Japan Pro Wrestling Dojo member Layla Gray, she steps in and is like, "No, you're the son of a bitch," or whatever. They're breaking these people apart. Darius Martin seems, he's pissed off, and so is Layla Gray, but Darius, he seems conflicted that his little unit is no longer, he just wants everyone to get along. He just wants his brother and his friend to get along. We've all been in those types of situations, right? Where you have two friends or a family member and a friend who just don't get along, right? And you're stuck in the middle, and you love them both, You love this one friend, you love the other friend, and you just want all your friend groups to get along. We've been in that situation. Hashtag relatable. Jack Perry cuts a promo on Shibata, whatever. And then we get to the main event where Bryan Danielson and Wheeler Yuta defeated Claudio Castagnoli and Pac. Danielson came out to the final countdown. I guess we can go all out with the expenses now that the deal is signed. Am I right, Tony? Yeah, let's just go. Well, let's have people coming out to Metallica next. Let's do Ride the Lightning or something. For Whom the Bell Tolls. How about that? Well, didn't we already do For Whom the Bell? Yeah, we did do that. But let's go. Let's get some of the big ones. Let's get the more some Beatles. How about some Beatles songs? Beatles songs are expensive to license, aren't they? Isn't that a thing? Let's have someone. Let's have the conglomeration come out to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. How about that? Yeah, I'm full of ideas. This was a good little match. If I were to rate it, I didn't give many ratings, did I? If I were to rate this, I'd give it like a 3, maybe a 3.25. It was well done, well wrestled. You've kind of seen this format before. Like, there was nothing innovative, nothing nothing truly memorable. Yeah, you had Danielson be the babyface in peril at first, and then he gets completely knocked out by Claudio later on in the match with a neutralizer on the floor, and that just ends him. So Wheeler, who had been the hot tag, now was the babyface in peril, and Danielson was nowhere to be found. And this is going to be interesting. This is going to be important for everything moving forward in this angle as well, because basically Wheeler gets he gets the tar beat out of him, and the babyfaces mount their comeback, and Danielson gets the label lock cinched in on Pac and gets the win for the team. After the match, he being Danielson and Mox, who was at ringside with Marina Shafir, Danielson and Mox brawl all the way to the backstage area, like into the bowels of the arena, and they're just fighting all the way. Meanwhile, you have Wheeler, who's left with Claudio and Pac and Marina, and they all gang up on him. And Pac tried to use, by the way, the bell hammer, and I'm glad I love that he still has that in his arsenal, in his personality, his persona, his that he still sometimes goes to the bell hammer to help him, like during the Best of 7 series with the Elite, right, which was tremendous and was a great defining mark for him during that time. And he's went back to the hammer before, but not frequently. Now he came back here. It didn't work out in the match, but they used the hammer to beat up on Wheeler Yuta. They were just like slugging him in the stomach, in the ribs or whatever. And eventually Mox and Danielson fight back down, and everyone sort of hits the bricks and they protect Moxley as Danielson stands in the ring, eyeing Moxley, and is like, all right, arms stretched, come on, doing the yes stuff. Meanwhile, you have Wheeler Yuta on the mat next to Danielson, and he's outstretching his arms like, oh my God. And it takes Danielson a real long time before showing any concern for Yuta. So I think at this point it's pretty clear that Wheeler Yuta is turning on Danielson. I think it's pretty clear, and the motivation for Yuta to do it, which will probably be at WrestleDream this weekend, is that I showed concern. I was there and I tried to stick up for you when you were being choked out with a plastic bag. And I stood by you because whatever, you're my mentor, etc., etc. I believed in you. And then you weren't even there for me in the match. And then in the aftermath, you weren't there either. And I was on the floor and I was on the mat next to you and I was suffering and you didn't even glance at me. It took him a long while before Danielson went, oh, hey, are you okay, buddy? And got him back up to his feet. So it's going to be something to that effect. Danielson, you only think about yourself. It's only been about you. Mox is about has this great vision. It's about us and whatever the fuck. It's going to be something like that. Mox has a cult. Mox is building a cult. That's what he's doing. He's got a cult. He's creating a cult. And I'm here for it. Cult leader Mox, sure, absolutely. There's something fresh. I'll be good. I'll be down with that. That works for me. And I hope this review worked for you as well. Thank you very much for listening all the way to the end at the same time. So one more pitch for a like on YouTube, for a 5-star review or a 5-star rating. That would all be tremendous. I will be back. I'm going to be streaming Wednesday night, Thursday as well. And then we'll be back for the Mr. Warren Hayes show next week and some more streams in the meantime. So best way to make sure you don't miss a thing is to become a subscriber of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show channel on YouTube. That's really the best thing you should do. Otherwise, you can continue to get the podcast, and that's also a great thing that you could do, that you are doing, and keep on doing it. I appreciate it. In the meantime, we're going to leave it at that. I hope you all have a great rest of your week. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.